Hi, everyone. I am delighted to welcome you to our video legal podcast. I'm John Deary, and we have a very interesting topic tonight, and that is while we represent a broad range of ethnic groups of clients and enjoy representing all of them, we do have a large group of Irish clients. And so today we're going to be talking about representing and servicing the Irish constituency. And I'm very delighted to have one of the most prominent leaders in the Irish community. And you will hear a lot about his background and his tremendous experience and knowledge about the Irish community and as it relates to Irish constituents and clients. So I'm delighted to welcome Marty Galvin. So nice to see you.
John, it's always an honor to be with you. The person who, everybody takes credit for bringing Bill Clinton in and getting him involved in the Irish situation and the Good Friday Agreement, all the great things that came. But the person who actually worked on it for 10 years and made it happen, it's always a pleasure and an honor to be with you in any way.
Thank you very, very much, Martin. Let me first of all ask you, tell us a bit about your Irish background. What's the Galvin background in Irish?
Well, the Galvin background is very different from the Leonard, my mother's family background. The Galvin background is my grandfather. Came from County Offaly just in time. He was one of the people who came to Brooklyn. Brother and two sisters also came, but basically the whole family came at that time. They are from Rahan in County Offaly. It's just near Tullamore. And on my mother's side of the family, they've been here, I think, since the 1880s or somewhere, maybe even before that. It's all Irish. It's Clancy and Leonard and just different Irish names, but they have been here for a longer period of time. And they met in Brooklyn.
Very nice.
Yes, moved to Queens out of the Bill of Rights. My father fought in the Second World War, and I went to school in the Bronx, and I've loved it ever since. So that's where I practice. So that's my roots. I was able actually to recapture them by going back when I was at Fordham. Going back, one of my grandfather's last brothers was there. Was able to visit him, work on him with that, but just was always interested in Ireland, sort of try to read about it. It was very difficult for a long time. It's not the materials that are available. So just by reading it, became interested, going there, visiting the North. That's what really sparked my
mentioned interest. What a remarkable leader you are in the Irish community. So let's hear a little bit about some of the activities that you do.
Do now or just in the past?
Now.
Well, right now, I'm the Freedom for All Ireland chair of the Ancient Order of Hibernians. The Ancient Order of Hibernians, you remember, John, it's the oldest and largest Irish Catholic organization. And we function throughout the 50 states. We do lobbying. I was down in Washington the past couple of days doing lobbying. We were down there about 2 weeks before that, myself and the national president, Sean Pender, on issues like Irish reunification, like justice for people who had family members killed during the Troubles by British forces, collusion, by British agents. Never got justice, never got the truth, was just set aside, including a very close friend of mine who lived in the Bronx for a number of years, Liam Ryan. So we do that as a result of my background, former national publicity chair of Irish Northern Aid for 15 years, editor of the Irish People newspaper for 15 years. And my position in the AOH. I'm in groups like the National Association for American Foreign Policy, like the Ad Hoc Committee for the implementation of the Good Friday Agreement. We work with other political parties in Ireland. We actually, one of the key things we do with the AOH is we raise money for groups who work for Freedom for All Ireland. I'll be going over with a tour, leading a tour of 44 people from the United States, going over. They'll see firsthand what life is like under British rule today, why the fight for justice continues, why the moves towards Irish reunification continue. And we'll be giving out about $150,000 in grants to groups working for Freedom for All Ireland today.
That's very substantial. Are you satisfied that we have the Irish organizations that we need to move forward for the goals that you're so devoted to?
We have the organizations, but I think the concern is when we have the Good Friday Agreement, people said, this is great, we have peace, we have a way to get a referendum that will unite Ireland peacefully, which everybody, and it seemed to be that people step back. They figure it is all done, it just has to work itself out, and automatically we'll get a united Ireland. And you look, one of the things that happens is when I speak with British officials, they have no interest in a united Ireland. They just claim that a referendum, a British secretary will someday magically announce that it's time for the referendum. There was enough numbers there. Doesn't tell us how that's going to happen. And meanwhile, the same British official will tell the unionist community, don't worry, this is way in the future, it'll never happen, so that they will never talk to nationalists because they feel it's a problem they'll never have to face. And with those things going on, I think the difference is we have the organizations, but we don't have the spirit. In the 70s and 80s and 90s, we had a march, we wore ribbons for a special envoy, we marched for justice, the McBride principles and other issues, for a visa for Jerry Adams, to support the families of political prisoners. People knew that there was an urgency. They wanted to identify, they wanted to support, whether it's the hunger strikers or other issues. And they wanted to push, they wanted to make sure that their representatives in Congress and in the administration, ultimately through the forum which you arranged, would push for justice and peace in a united Ireland. We don't have that urgency now. We think it'll happen automatically, and that, I think, is a big problem, because that's the type of thing the British take advantage of.
There's a very famous phrase, Good Friday Agreement, and you made reference to it a little bit ago. Just give us a few sentences on that.
Well, that was something that in no small part, you played a part in. The troubles existed, they began in 1969. It seemed like they would go on forever. And particularly where we had administrations like Reagan and Bush, who were very close to the British, Margaret Thatcher in particular. And we always felt that you needed an administration that would get involved in the Irish issues, that they would push for peace, they could be an impartial arbitrator and get something that would solve everything. In 1992, after about 10 years of effort that you spearheaded, it was put on the Democratic presidential agenda for both Clinton and his main opponent, Jerry Brown. So whoever was going to come out of that Democratic primary, get the nomination, he would support us. He would support a visa for Jerry Adams. He would support appointing a special envoy. And of course, you were the first one to put that proposal forward. You had Ray Flynn ask that of Clinton and Brown both, and was granted. The visa for Jerry Adams, you picked me to ask that because of my involvement in that issue. Other issues air at the forum. But because of that, Clinton did appoint a special envoy, George Mitchell, to lead peace negotiations, to represent the president. It took until 1998, but at that time, Mitchell, with the backing of President Clinton, secured an agreement, brought everybody together, got a peace agreement that you finally would bring peace, ended the troubles, but also on the condition that the Irish people would one day get a vote on reunification, and reunification could come about peacefully, which was a key part, and that's what we're waiting for and hoping for.
One of the most legendary names in the Irish community, both, and of course here in the U.S., and also he is, of course, from Ireland, Northern Ireland, and that is Jerry Adams. Why don't you give us a little update on Jerry?
Well, he actually, right now, he's retired. He writes for the Irish Echo, but he actually right now is in the middle of a trial. 3 people have sued him to say that he acknowledged he was, or to have the trial verdict acknowledge that he was a leading figure in the IRA. A few months back, he won a case. There was a libel case in Dublin. He won it, got substantial damages, donated it to charity. But today he's in, I think it's just finishing up, a trial in an English court with a British judge who was brought by 3 plaintiffs. It can only give nominal damages, £1 each or something like that. but it's just still being pursued in the courts by people. He was a leading figure in Sinn Féin. They're alleging in that court case that he was a leading figure in the Irish Republican Army, and an English judge will decide that he says that he was only guilty of one thing, being an Irish Republican. But for years, our government denied people like him, any Republican, the opportunity to come here. You put that on the Irish agenda for Bill Clinton to face. Clinton made that promise of a visa. He kept that promise. It led to the appointment of, that he had also promised of George Mitchell. It led to peace. It led to the possibility of peaceful unification of Ireland. If the British will do something they have very seldom done in Irish history, keep the agreement that they made.
Is Jerry in reasonably good physical condition?
He's in very good physical condition. I think he's 77 years of age. He lives in Belfast. He writes a column every week for the Irish Echo. And again, he's still hunted by people in the British courts right now this week.
A legendary person. Now, let me ask you about Irish constituents, Irish individuals. How might they reach you?
Well, my number is 718-665-1800, 718-665-1800. And there's still a lot of political issues. There are issues. We still have people who, one of the things that Clinton did, and again, as a result of that forum, gave some former political prisoners, he gave them a legal status in this country and let them stay. They were married to American citizens. They've been involved in the peace process. They have been longtime U.S. residents. There were a number of them who were given special status as part of a later agreement by Janet Reno on the recommendation of the Secretary of State. And two of them, Gabe McGahey, Brian Pearson, they still have great difficulty every time their Social Security is up for renewal. Every time their status is up for renewal, they have to keep putting in for work authorizations. And with the help of the Irish community, the support of the Irish community, and groups like the Emerald Isle Immigration Center, they get supported. They're still here. We welcome the fact that they're here. They're tremendous assets for the community.
You have been requested, I know for a fact, constantly to speak at Irish organizations. You're remarkable, as you are showing right here today, your remarkable historical understanding of where we have been in terms of an Irish community. What organizations have you spoken at, or do you speak at?
Well, I'm a member of the Ancient Order of Hibernians, but I get invited to different groups, different audiences, particularly this year, because last summer, and it was just shown again, there was an RT, an Irish television network documentary about NORAID, and I was interviewed very heavily for that. I was
just spell that out, NORAID.
Irish Northern Aid Committee. It was the leading organization in terms of supporting the Republican struggle in the 70s and 80s. We were a leading organization in helping for a visa for Jerry Adams. We were fortunate. We had political leaders like Mario Biaggi in Congress, or Ben Gilman, or others, and particularly yourself. You feature in that documentary in 1982 or 83 saying we need to get this on the presidential agenda. We need a special envoy at a time when no one thought that that was possible. And you organized events. Remember wearing the special envoy pins and ribbons in St. Patrick's Day in pushing for it. And you led the way. You designed it. You came up with that concept. And it came true. Groups like Irish Northern Aid and the Ancient Order of Hibernians and others got behind your idea and supported it. And the people in Ireland have peace because of it. And hopefully one day they'll have reunification and a referendum because of it.
What questions do you tend to receive when you're speaking at organizations, and then often you'll take questions? What are questions you may receive under that setting, or as people are calling you on the phone or having any other contact with you? What are the kind of questions relative to legal rights that they might be looking for?
Well, one of the prime issues that people have right now deals with immigration. You have people who've come over, overstayed their visa, and they are in a position where they have great difficulty. And I always recommend that those people go to the Emerald Isle Immigration. They're opening a new office on Katona Avenue in the Bronx. They have one in Queens. They really will come forward and recommend best ways to proceed. You have people who've been here for years and they had something in their background, and suddenly they get picked up and they're held in the jails by ICE. They've had very difficult conditions. They've had a number of cases like that, which people have actually, some of them gone home. They protested. It's become a major issue in Ireland. People think there's no problem with immigration for the Irish, but there is. And you have situations, one of the saddest things, people will apply for a visa to come here either for business or for just holidays. We had a case that we were dealing with in the AOH. A young girl, 10 years old, was coming to the United States to Disney World with her mother, and was denied a visa because her father had been, who wasn't on the trip, was involved in the struggle. And you get put into an administrative category, you get put into, and you're told it's under review, so you can't come on a holiday visa. And we were able, in some cases, we've been successful through politicians by going to ambassadors, by pressuring on their behalf and litigate. But these are people, as I said, somebody 10 years old now was not involved in the struggle that ended in 1998. We've had business people who have relatives in the same situation. One of them just got a visa after 2 years because his company, he's a lawyer, company wanted to send him to the United States to represent people and couldn't do it. And he was 24 years old. He was not even born at the time the struggle began. So those are things that strike very deeply, and we work in terms of political issues, in terms of lobbying for them, in terms of working with groups like Emerald Isle, like public officials, and we've been successful sometimes, and sometimes we haven't been successful, and it's disappointing when we're not.
I would have to assume that the overwhelming group of Irish are obviously English speaking, but do you deal with any that are just Gaelic speaking?
There is a growing movement in Ireland to speak Irish, and it's something I am very upset that the fact that I never learned. I just learned about 10 or 12 Irish words, but everybody, the Irish community that we've ever dealt with, and I think that would be pretty true across the board, is an English speaker, but it's a growing movement for Irish. They want to learn it. There's TV stations now, or programs in Ireland. There's groups that study and will teach Irish here, and it's something I always wish I knew.
Do you find the contact that you have with the Irish, these first generation or second generation Irish?
Well, these are mostly first generation. Second generation, well, I do criminal law also. I know you have somebody else speaking on that, so I will get calls or contacted by people from all generations on that issue. I also get a lot of calls now from younger people who are far, I don't know what generation there are, but they're interested in now learning about the Troubles, that part of Irish history, and studying it. And they ask me about it, and I can tell them about what it was like in Irish Northern Aid at a time. It would be the Irish government was against us, and politicians who were supposed to be Irish, like Moynihan and O'Neill and others, were against us, and the British government was against us, and the American government, and we had to rely on our numbers and the truth and a few people like Assemblyman John Deary who would speak for us.
There has been a very interesting history of the Irish community and the leadership of the Irish community relative to the Archdiocese of New York. How would you describe the relationship currently?
Right. Well, we have a very new person in charge. I was an aide to the Grand Marshal when Cardinal Dolan was the Grand Marshal, so I was able to just go proceed a few feet behind him. We did have a situation once where Michael Flannery of Irish Northern Aid, who,
Sure.
by the way, was a daily communicant, very religious man.
That was a remarkable story.
Didn't drink. You can't say that about every Grand Marshal that we've had, as you know. I don't know how many we'd be able to say that about. But the Cardinal at that time, Cardinal Cook, boycotted the parade, and it became embarrassing. We had one of the largest parades ever. Cardinal Cook, some politicians like Moynihan and O'Neill and others, the Irish government, whatever schools they could control, they boycotted, and it was the largest parade ever because the Irish community wanted to march behind Michael Flannery. And I'm happy to say, when Cardinal O'Connor came in, he immediately contacted us, and we had, at that time, there were confidential meetings. I think myself and Peter King are the only ones still around, so they wouldn't object.
Sure, Peter.
But he immediately welcomed us in, spoke to us, wanted that to change so that if somebody, we were thinking at that time of running Peter King, and he was elected as a Grand Marshal, supporting Peter King, who was very popular in his own right, was worthy of being a Grand Marshal in his own right, but Irish Northern Aid would be behind him. And Cardinal O'Connor wanted to make sure, and we wanted to make sure, Mike Flannery, everyone assured him, we did not want to have a break like that. We did not want to go out and embarrass the Cardinal or the Archdiocese, and we were put in a position where we had to do that by Cardinal Cook, and were gratified when we no longer had to do that was changed by Cardinal O'Connor. And as I said, when Cardinal Dolan was Grand Marshal and walked down the street, I was walking right behind him as one of his aides.
Interesting history. What would you say in terms of the industries that many of the Irish that you are representing and that we deal with, what industries do you think they basically work at?
Well, people come over and they work in construction. That's one of the places. Or they work in the restaurant trade. Bar owners, restaurants, waitresses, all of those things. But they will work. There used to be a big flooring business. That used to be a big growing industry for the Irish. But they will go into politics. They articulate very well their positions. And they start out at a an area like that, an entry-level position, and they make tremendous successes. In fact, one of the things I'm very jealous of, I've represented people and they start businesses. I've had people who asked me to invest in different businesses with them, and I was a little bit nervous. I remember somebody a few years back asking me to invest. I still represent him. In a property he was buying at 125th Street. I said, that's a terrible neighborhood. Don't do it. And I went down, and there were drug users and everything. I said, I can't risk money here. And of course, that's now an enterprise zone, and he is a multimillionaire several years over. And if I had done that, I would be in a lot better economic condition than I am today. But it's remarkable how many people come from Ireland, they'll establish businesses and make a tremendous success of themselves because of their ability and confidence, and something that I lack a little bit.
With regard to the kind of injuries that our Irish community tend to suffer, how would you kind of classify those?
Well, you have a lot of construction accidents, and there's a number of firms that they would go to. I will recommend them out, and firms that deal with that, like your own firm. But you have that, you have just issues, every type of injury, but they're worried about people coming out, and if they don't have a legal status right now because of the concern about ICE, because of the concerns about some of the conditions that they have, that they're held under, there is a great concern for that reason.
You have any sense in terms of what areas within New York City, or even generally beyond that, the neighborhoods beyond the city, what neighborhoods are the Irish have some concentration in?
Well, Woodlawn, I live in the Bronx part, and we still have a concentration in. And then you go across McLean Avenue. I'll be parading tomorrow. on McLean Avenue, with an England out of Ireland banner with the Bronx County AOH. And you, as a member of Bronx County, you're welcome always to join us. But that is certainly a big Irish neighborhood. But you go around, and there are different places where there are major Irish communities. You go up to, and in fact, go to Albany, or I go to Suffolk, or I go to places on Long Island and elsewhere, Chicago, different cities, different places across the country, Philadelphia, and you'll have Boston. You'll still have these big Irish halls. And I always jealous of the fact that New York City, maybe because we have so many restaurants and premises, we don't have an AOH hall. We don't have, we have the Irish Arts Center now, things like that, but we don't have some of the facilities that others have. But there are Irish communities around the country. There is a problem because of the way the immigration law was drawn. It's based on population. Ireland doesn't have a big population, so you don't get as many of the opportunities as a country, say, like India or some of the other countries would get because of their population. So it's a fight. People want to come here. They love the opportunity they would have in the United States and find themselves going to Australia, find themselves going to Canada, find themselves going elsewhere, and we lose the skills and benefits that they would bring to the United States the way that the Irish have always brought skills and dedication and abilities to the United States when they've been allowed to come here.
While there are many categories of types of injuries and but I think you could kind of break it down to some extent, and this is not the exclusive, but you've got motor vehicle cases, you've got premises, you got construction, you've got medical malpractice, just among them. What is your experience in terms of the type of cases that you hear from the Irish?
I get all of them.
Yeah.
But what I would do is refer them. I do some criminal law, represent companies, and I would refer them out because we have so many good lawyers like your firm in the Bronx community who are experts at a lot of those types of construction accidents, et cetera, and motor vehicle, those types of things. So I would refer it out to somebody who's an expert and stay within the areas in which I, confident going forward.
An important phrase also is notice of claim. Maybe give us a few words on that.
Notice you have to make a claim within certain period if you're suing the city particularly. And it's one thing in New York City, it's a short period of time. If you're on the other side of where I live, you go in one door in St. Barnabas Parish and you're in the Bronx, but you come out the other side, you're in Yonkers. And if you get in an accident there or anywhere in Westchester, it's a much shorter notice of claim. So you've got to contact attorneys. You've got to do that very quickly. Heartbreaking thing is when people call and they have a case and then you say, when did it happen? And you find out that they're now time barred and it's, they don't really have a way of proceeding. They're not going to be allowed to proceed. The city or the municipality is going to fight them and they're time barred because they didn't file the notice of claim.
On that topic, I would assume that you would recommend if someone is injured in an accident that they do in fact seek legal assistance as early as possible after the accident.
I recommend that with everybody. For example, criminal law. If you speak to somebody, to the police, or you get arrested and just even a decision whether to take a breathalyzer test, if you call an attorney, you're in a situation where you're in a much stronger position. I've had cases actually knocked out because people weren't given their right to call an attorney. If you, with a civil action, an injury, something like that, if you call an attorney, you can get good advice, you know how to proceed. It's not going to get any better. If you don't call an attorney, it will get a lot worse. And particularly with insurance, people think you can call the insurance company of a driver, let's say, if you're in a car accident, the other side, they're against you. They're looking to take a statement to hurt you. They're not there to help you. If you call an attorney first before going to them, you're in a much stronger position. You'll get good advice. You find out you'll do much better.
Another key phrase is statute of limitations.
statute of limitations, which how much time you have to bring an action. And again, it's important to pursue, contact an attorney first so you can file a claim that's timely. You don't want to find that you have a claim, that time has gone by, that you could have made substantial recovery as damages for the injury that you've received or the opportunity, economic benefits that you have lost, and find that you can't do that now because time to file has passed. Statute of limitations, you're limited, you're out, you get no claim, just simply regardless of the justice of your claim because of the time and you didn't file in time. So I would recommend to anybody, call an attorney. Don't ask your relatives. Don't ask your friends for advice, except for a recommendation on attorney. They don't know what to do other than to call an attorney. Call an attorney. Get the best legal advice you can.
One other phrase I'm going to run by you is strict liability.
Well, in construction accidents, you could fall and it could be your fault that you slipped, but strict liability, you're going to recover. There are accidents like that. You're going to get substantial damages. Go to an attorney, get them to handle that claim on your behalf. And with many of these claims, you don't have to pay them. If there's a car accident or a construction accident or something of that nature, you don't have to take money out of your pocket. They're working for you. They get money only if they do well for you, and the better they do for you, the better the percentage goes to them, the better amount recovery they'll get.
I mentioned about you being a prominent Irish leader, and you showed us all today as to why, in fact, you are. Give us your contact information again so that people can know how they can reach you if there is a need for an accident and an attorney.
Or advice on Irish situations. I'm at 718-665-1800, 718-665-1800. My email, anybody can remember it, it's mgalvin, ESQ. My son, who's also an attorney, beat me to mgalvin at AOL, so I have to go to mgalvin, E like Edward, S like Sam, Q like Queens, at AOL.com.
A real pleasure to have you here, and thank you so much, Martin.
John, it is always an honor, and one of the regrets that I have, I get so many people taking credit for Clinton getting involved or for the special envoy proposal or for there being a Good Friday Agreement. And remember you talking about that on stands, demonstrations, at a time when everybody thought it would never happen, and you led the way to make it happen. And I know I will, and anybody who knows who deserves credit for that will always look to you and admire you, and can't say how grateful we are.
I appreciate that very much, but it only happened, and I had a voice in it, but only because we had wonderful people supporting that effort, and no one more supportive than you. So thanks a million, Martin. Our pleasure.
Well, I was happy to support somebody who could envision a way to go forward and give us one, and you're the one who did it on that.
Thanks a million.
Great.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, John, and thank you all the contributions you've made over so many years. And speaking out when you were an assemblyman at a time when there weren't a lot of people on the platforms beside you.
Thank you.